Are you overcoming doubt to create success? Welcome aboard, fellow voyagers. As a professional pilot, I was interviewed recently by a friend of mine in her mission to support her community to overcome those all too familiar devils of doubt that prevent us, so many of us, from living lives full of experience, joy, and adventure. And it was a great privilege. I was so honored to be able to contribute. And here is the full interview. I'm Ben from Melt the Icebergs. Join me in my mission to discover self-belief and live the life of our dreams.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have Ben LeFleming here, who's going to talk all about becoming a professional pilot, a dream that overcame the doubt. Ben is very inspiring, and I'm going to hand it off to him to do the introduction further and to go straight in, guys. Welcome, Ben. It's really great having you here.
Thank you. That's lovely. It's a lovely introduction. Thank you, Tulsi. And thank you, everybody, for having me along. It's a real privilege to find a place in your life when you feel as though you have something to offer back, because I think this is one of the biggest things for me, is that I've had so much come my way. I've had so many people come together. The teamwork to bring me to where I am in my life in flying has just been immense. If you look back for where you start, it's teamwork before you're even born. It takes two people, and then somebody has to deliver you. And I just think if we can go back to that basic thing. So really, where did I start with flying? Well, I didn't actually fly a plane until I was 25, because I grew up thinking that I wasn't particularly smart. I was good at sports. I loved throwing balls around and climbing trees and just seeking adventure, running around outside. But when I got into the classroom, I couldn't actually concentrate. So I had teachers asking me questions, and I would just freeze, thinking, oh no, what do I say? I felt all these faces staring at me, and I was going to be caught out. It's that whole thing that I just wasn't good enough. I wasn't as capable as others. So I never really thought that I was capable of becoming a pilot. I just doubted that. I went to a presentation when I was at school on flying, and they gave me an indication that I just had to be smart with maths and physics and chemistry, and that definitely wasn't me. So I went through my school years doubting myself so much, and until I got to 25, I did go to university, but not the university that I chose, and I would train to be a property professional. Worked really hard. That's the one thing that I've always done, is worked really hard despite my doubts. And at 25 years old, I was getting towards the end of my training. I was up in an interview with three people in a hotel room. I remember it very clearly. And I walked in, having been told by all the people that had backed me to that point that I was good enough to become a property professional. And I walked in there with the wrong mindset, and I just convinced myself that I was going to get caught out. That classic thing, demon on your shoulder, telling you that you're just not good enough and people are going to catch you out. And I didn't pass it because I didn't display the confidence that they needed to see for me to join their professional body, to go out and represent myself to other people. So I came out and I was at a complete low. I felt just everything that I doubted about myself was coming true. So I actually just had no idea where I was going to go in life. And I sat on a sofa at my best friend's house, and he had a brochure for flying for a local school up the road. And I just thought, this is ridiculous. And I just started reading it. And it was like one of those epiphany moments. I don't know whether you guys remember those feelings. It's a light bulb moment just came on, and I just could not believe what I was reading here. This is, and it basically said, if you have a dream in life, you have to go for it. You absolutely have to go for it. The only person that will ever stop you is yourself. It was such a brilliant bit of material. And that was it. After that, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I was going to fly an aeroplane, just determined to get over all the doubt and the fears and the uncertainties and the insecurities. because my heart was thumping so much. I just felt that passion. And 4 months later, I was on an airplane and I headed to America to do my training. And I had some big ups and downs, which we can talk. I think, having seen some of your questions, I can relate to those later. And after 18 months of intense training and seriously hard work, lots of ups and downs, lots of turbulence, as I like to point out in a flying analogy, I got my license to fly. And my first job was at a parachute school, and I was dropping parachutists. One thing I'd like to add now is something we can talk about later, is I actually have a very crippling fear of heights. So I've had to overcome that, as well as my doubts to be a pilot itself. And that was one thing that helped me out with my parachute at the school that I was dropping parachute guys from. So I went on from there to do some survey flying. So guy in the aeroplane taking photographs while I'm flying all the way around. That was in the UK. And then I got my big break to go and fly a little VIP jet around Europe. And that was great fun, everywhere and anywhere. And after a few years, I went to a big airline and I flew the big Boeings, the 757 and the Boeing 767, short haul and long haul around the world. And then I decided I wanted to go back to the smaller aircraft, the VIP flying. So that's where I've been for the last 12 or 13 years now. And I am fortunate that I arguably have got to the top of my tree in the corporate world and the VIP world. And I fly billionaires all the way around the world. I've been to every continent, and I've had the most incredible experiences of meeting the most amazing people from all walks of life, being in some very demanding situations, having to really dig deep and question myself on so many different levels, not just the flying, on the personal side, the relationships I've built. It's been an amazing journey, an amazing experience. And I'd love for other people to follow in my path of adventure and experience, regardless whether it's flying. I just really believe that you have to follow your dreams. You have to listen to your heart, because that is the way to overcome the obstacles that inevitably are thrown in our path. So that's just a quick summary. I think I'd want to monologue this too much. Maybe we can discuss a few bits that you think might be worth talking about, Tulsi.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you just reminded me of two things there. The one was when I completely forgot about this experience until you spoke now about this property, interview you had, and you couldn't convince yourself. You were full of doubts. I was in an interview for an air hostess for South African Airlines when I just finished school, and I reached that last interview. Now they took us through more than 3 interviews, and I made it through all. But again, I didn't really know myself well enough, and it was that last one that I didn't get through. And I was like you, I was like really sad that, oh my God, this is the dream. I want to see places, but was it really my dream? Was it?
Yeah.
Or was I making it my dream? So I couldn't convince them because I couldn't convince myself. It's the truth.
Yes.
That last one, the last interview in itself was the proof. And you sit there and you think that, did I lose out? Because it's like, I really want this because I feel like I lost out. But in the end, life showed me another thing. And then this crippling fear of heights. I worked on a cruise boat, but I couldn't swim properly. But I had to jump off a plank in the testing. Then the cruise boat level with the survival, with the life jacket. And I jumped because I want to go on the cruise boat and I want to work there. So I jumped, and it was like that. But
it's a great example. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's flying or not. It's just the simple things in life. If we can recognize them, and we can do something about overcoming them, can't we?
Yeah, and it became a dream come true, even though I couldn't swim. So yeah, you just kind of displayed it here.
The dream come true. The dream come true. The dream is all about imagination, and it's not just some fantasy thing that's never going to happen. A dream is there to point you in the right direction, and you just have to follow it. You have to believe in it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh my God, your experience, I mean, like, yeah, please do go on, otherwise I'll go on for you. So,
No, well, I think so. If I'd give advice to anybody, it's that actually you never achieve anything in life without stepping outside of your comfort zone. You have to be excited by uncertainty in life, because otherwise you will never experience it at all. So when somebody tells you, so for me, I think that the schooling that I've grown up with, and it still happens now with my children, I see that we're all geared towards that. Well, as long as you pass your maths and your physics and English, then you'll be a success. And if you don't, you won't be a success. But there are so many different options out there. They don't encourage you to believe that if you follow your dreams, you will find it. But you have to bring people together. There are so many people that have got us to where we are these days. And if you think about flying, one of the statistics that I heard years and years ago is that it takes 1,000 people to get one aeroplane into the air. Isn't that an extraordinary number? 1,000 people, from anybody that's designed the aeroplane in the first place, they've helped build it, they maintain it, the fuelers, the people who plan the routes across the sky that stop you crashing into each other, the pilots, the cabin attendants, the people bringing the food on, just there's so much, the weather people. There is so many people coming together, and I just think that's the important thing. When we isolate ourselves from the big wide world, we take away our spiritual connection to other people, and that is such an important fact. So I think there are four things. I don't want to not talk about flying too much, but there are four things that I have concentrated in my life, which I think have helped me become a successful pilot and overcome the other things in my life. And the first thing is your mindset, of course. You have to be determined. You have to put the hard work in, be motivated, particularly when the passion wears down a little bit, because we all get very excited, don't we? Feel passionate. And then when the obstacles come, you think, oh, maybe this isn't for me. And the doubt comes in, and then the boredom comes in. But your motivation means that you have to get through that boredom. You have to feel excited about boredom, get into a mindset of excited about boredom. You have to look after your physical side. So you've got to sleep properly. You've got to eat properly. You've got to exercise properly. You've got to look in the mirror and just look at the color in your face, the color in your eyes. And the next thing for me is your emotional side. We are brought down by our emotions, our fears and doubts and insecurities, our feeling of shame. We're always feeling as though somebody is judging us. And we have to do an awful lot of work, I think, to be successful in anything we do. I think, particularly as a pilot, because we are in these very claustrophobic environments, and we're always being tested mentally and physically. People always checking on you. There's the emotional pressure of that, and there's the physical pressure of not actually crashing an aeroplane, of course. And then the last thing, the fourth thing, is the spiritual side, and that is the connection to people. For me, as soon as I feel as though I'm backing off or defending myself against a pilot sitting next to me, maybe it's another captain or a first officer, I know that I'm disconnecting from what is going to help me go forward, what is going to help me get that aeroplane onto the ground at the end. And if you can imagine sitting in an airplane going across the Atlantic for 8 hours with someone you really do not like, you're sitting with that much space between you for hours and hours. You can get up and go to the loo, and you've got to come back down together. So it's a very claustrophobic environment, and you have to have all those four elements in place to be able to deal with that personal situation and everything that's going on in the airplane as well. So I would say teamwork encompasses all those bits and pieces. So
wow.
yeah, how does that sound, Tulsi? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you also like made me think about this air traffic controllers. You also have to be engaged with them to be able to land your plane, and how many people are involved. I never really thought about it until you just brought it up now, how much communication and getting along, even through the conflict, that has to be their maturity and responsibility. Yeah, a lot
Yeah,
to take into account there. Yeah.
there is a huge amount, and I think your words have responsibility and maturity. Really, we have to take responsibility for ourselves and our emotions and the things that are going wrong in our lives before we can properly interact with the right people. So I think if I try and, my advice to my children, for example, is if I'm stood there on the next to the aircraft on the ramp, as we call it, and we're about to take off to South Africa. I've been to South Africa. It's a beautiful place, Cape Town, wonderful. And you know, I've had a bad night's sleep. I've had an argument with my children, or with, well, I have an ex-wife now. Of course, I had lots of arguments with her, but and I stand there and I'm just thinking about my own internal issues. And the fueler comes along, and I don't acknowledge him and smile with him, engage with him, ask how he is. He may have had a really bad night as well the night before. He may have had similar circumstances, and he'd be thinking, well, this guy doesn't care about me. Nobody cares about me. And can you imagine if he puts the wrong amount of fuel in an airplane, or, you know, something goes wrong and we take off and halfway down to South Africa, there's a fuel problem. Just because of my interaction with him, I could make such a difference to him. This is what I mean by taking responsibility for yourself and your own emotions and your motivations, and helping other people along. And a key thing in life is to always make sure that you don't disconnect from what's around you. It is teamwork, and it is what will keep you alive in an airplane, and it will also make that journey very successful and very enjoyable. And I think that's a hugely good metaphor for life. It's not just about safety and surviving. It's about actually enjoying the experience and seeing it as an adventure. Life is an adventure, but you can't have the ups and downs. You can't have an adventure without the ups and the downs. It's just inevitable. But,
true. Yeah. You just said something there that you know, that it takes a second for something to change, even half a second. So in anything, even especially like, because you got so many bodies to be responsible for on the plane, the presence, to be present. And that's why I understand now: eat well, sleep well. And yeah. So hey, you know what, we got 6 questions, guys. You've given me a lot of questions here to give to Ben. And I'm worried that, you know, he's not going to get in time to answer all these questions. But I don't know, Ben, do you want to start answering questions now, or do you?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because otherwise we're going to move away from the bit. I know that you guys want to hear about flying itself. So, and I often talk about the holistic thing, which is, again, is really important. But yeah, go for it, Tulsi. Let's talk some questions.
Yeah. Okay. Let me go and get them. You know, guys, before I go to the questions, Ben, he's got lots of videos and photos he's going to give to show to you the experience of flying. So, you know, stay tuned for that, because, you know, it's a really good topic here. Okay. Question 1. What was your worst experience from all your years of being a pilot? And what was the best experience from all your years of being a pilot, and why? Good question.
Very good question. And I tell you what, I could be here for 10 hours and still keep going, because there are so many different things. I think, as I probably alluded to before, there's different experiences of physically bad experiences in flying. Of course, you know, we need to consider the safety of that aeroplane, which is what people who fly in them are completely concerned about. They just want to go from A to B. I think my first real worst feeling was when you start getting your training for your private license. You go off with an instructor, and after a few hours, he sends you off for your first solo. So you do some takeoff and landings, and you're built up to it. So he's saying, if it goes well tomorrow, then I'll jump out the aeroplane and you can take it up on your own. So that feeling I remember of doing 3 takeoff and landings. I was out in America, in Venice, on the west coast of Florida. Very exciting, beautiful weather, absolutely stunning scenery. And I just was so intent on making this happen on that day. I put so much pressure on myself. But we did these 3 takeoff and landings. He didn't say anything. And then I landed the 3rd time, and he said, right, let me out on the side of the runway. And he opened the door from this tiny little Cessna 152, little old thing, which was about 50 years old. And he stood on the side there, and I turned around and I felt my heart beating so much. And I powered the aeroplane down the runway. and lifted in the air. And I thought, okay, this is good. He believes in me. He's down there. So he believes in me. He knows I can do it. So I've got to believe in myself. And I came around and I did a circuit. I was going to talk about my worst. This is my best first thing. I'll talk about the worst in a second. And I came round to land, and my heart was beating even harder. And I was just concentrate. And I came down, and it wasn't the prettiest landing at all. It was a bump, and it was, not comfortable. I wouldn't have been proud to have passengers with me, but I knew he was there smiling at me. And I went out and I did it 3 times. And at the end, there was just the biggest smile on his face. And I think for me, when you're with somebody who's invested so much in you as an individual, and they smile at you and they're proud that you have given them the justice, you've justified their efforts. I think that's the really important thing. So that was probably my best feeling early on. The worst feeling was about 2 flights later. You have to go up into the air on your own, do some practice of different maneuvers before you take your private license flight test. So they need to feel that you're comfortable going out and doing all the various different things. And I went up into the air and I was practicing what they call a stall maneuver. Anybody who's watching this, when people hear about stall, it's a car stalling. So the engine stalls. But what actually happens with an airplane is that if you get too slow in an airplane, the airflow over the wing stops. So the airplane just drops out the sky. There's no lift, and that's what they call a stall. And you have to practice recovery from that. So you basically pull the nose up, and then you make sure the speed comes right back, and then suddenly you get this buffeting where the airflow is disturbed over the wings, and it suddenly drops. And what actually happens is that your nose tends to drop, the nose of the airplane drops, and sometimes one of the wings drop. I was trained to recognize this, and there is a certain maneuver that you have to do things in sequence, basically, to level the airplane out first with your feet on your rudders, and then you push the nose down, and then you put some power in to try and recover. I did it the wrong way around, and I got myself into a spin. So I was going down like this, spinning around like you see the aerobatic people. And I just felt that, if anybody here remembers what it feels, that massive panic of fear and of, the world coming to an end. You have this sort of rushing feeling. You have this white sense. You have just a strange feeling in your ears. And I just thought, this is it. It's all over. But then, of course, I'd been trained to do something. So you've got to take a deep breath, and I recovered that situation, and I was shaking like a leaf, absolutely shaking like a leaf, until I got onto the ground. And when I saw my instructor, I was white as a sheet, and he said, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I told him about it, and he just laughed. He laughed at me. I was like, what the hell are you laughing at? I thought I was going to die. He was like, "Listen, those airplanes are so safe that if you'd done nothing and panicked, it would have come out of itself already." Wow. And I just thought, that's amazing. Actually, I'm pleased, and I was so proud of myself, having been in the worst situation. I thought that, it could have been over. Was actually, I didn't panic, and I recovered the situation. And that taught me that really critical lesson that, okay, I've got that far, and to move on. And I think really, this is the worst and the best experiences. For me, the summary is, the worst experiences you have in life always teach you a lesson. That always teach you a lesson. Every time you try and bury them, stick them away, and think, I've got to forget about it because it was horrible, it's gonna come up and it's gonna bite you in the end. But if you embrace the things that have gone wrong, the things that have been really hard, the scariest moments in your life, it will give you the confidence to go on and do something a bit better and help other people. That's the important thing. Like that instructor did with me. He'd been in that scenario himself, and I can do that with the guys that I fly with now, to give them the encouragement, the motivation that they will, the chances are they will survive. Just don't panic. It's yeah. So those are my 2 early stories. I got hundreds of them, but those are the 2 early ones. So
I want to say a lot, but I'm not going to, because I want these guys to really get the best. They're getting the best here. So okay, question 2. What are the pros and cons of flying within the VIP sector please tell all, oh, you guys, so that when we do make it to the top, we can be more grounded people. What did you take from your experience when it comes to this question? Ish, that's a long question.
Long question, and again, there's a lot in there, and I could talk for hours about it. But you know what I really liked was that it was the grounded, the phrase, the grounded people. I'm just referring to a couple of notes up here. If I'm looking in the corner here, it's on my screen. The grounded people, because that's exactly what it's like when you're up in the air in an airplane. You know, so many things, you're at different, so many different dimensions going on. And when we're on the ground, we need to make sure that we're standing solid, and we need to, I teach cricket. You guys are big into cricket in South Africa there. My son's a cricketer, I'm a cricketer, I teach cricket. And I always say that everything in life, stability, everything comes from your core, from your position around your waist. And when you're on the ground, you've got to stand there with your feet in a solid position, and stand there with your shoulders back and your chin up, and you've got to be solid. So I love that in that question there. The pros and cons of flying in the VIP sector. I've done both. So I've flown in the big airlines and the VIP sector. I started my career mainly in the VIP sector. And what I love about it is the fact that it's not just about flying. It's about representing yourself as a person, as an individual. So I have billionaires. I fly billionaires around, some of the richest people in the world. I never thought 25 years ago that I would be anywhere near this. And people say to me, Tulsi, you and I have done some training together. They say that your life is your marketing. So all you're doing is trying to represent yourself in an honest way. So I love the fact that I can meet these people and show a little bit of my personality. However, I doubt myself. You know, the chances are they're going to like me. They trust me to get in that airplane, and I have to prove them right. It's a bit like my instructor. So when you get into an airline, a big airline, anybody that's been on a big airplane knows that you generally get on an airplane, the pilots turn left and the passengers turn right, and so you're completely separated from each other. That's the sad thing of the closed cockpit door scenario now. And you're just shut away at the front of that airplane. And for me, it shuts away from that spiritual connection that I feel as though I need with people. So I love the fact that I get to communicate a lot more with everybody and anybody, from the people who are cleaning the airplane to the richest people in the world. In the space of 1.5 hours, I'm dealing with, you know, some of the people on the lowest pay in the world and the highest pay in the world. It's just an extraordinary experience. It just makes me connect to that spiritual side of myself. The other thing I like about flying VIP stuff is that we fly much less than we do in airlines. Airlines are absolutely relentless. They hammer you out, which is great in terms of experience. And I did that when I was younger, when I needed to. As much flying as possible to gain some experience and confidence. What I really like about the VIP sector now is that I get to be on the ground for a week somewhere. For example, I came back last night from Savannah in America and Georgia. Our aeroplane was in maintenance for 7 weeks, and I had to get an airliner over there, and I had to do some flight testing. The airplane had both of its engines replaced, so we needed to make sure everything was okay. I had 3 days off before I did that first flight, and I explored Savannah, which is brilliant. And the big airlines, you don't necessarily get a chance to do that these days. And the other good thing about it is that I get to do little bits that are different. So that flight testing was great. I had the engineers in the back, and we took off, and we had an engine vibration message, which basically says that the engine is vibrating too much and it's an unsafe scenario. So it wasn't an emergency situation. We analyzed the situation and came down, and they did some reconfiguration, and we went up again. So those sorts of things are just a bit different. The VIP sector is a bit different. It's very unpredictable. Every day is different. You go everywhere in the world. Airlines is much more structured. I would say in the airline business, it's much more certain. So you have a roster that generally comes out for 6 weeks ahead, so you can plan ahead. My life for the last, I would say, 12 years is generally being away for, say, 2 weeks or 3 weeks at a time. And then I come back for maybe 2 weeks. I have a fortunate job that I have a good balance. I like that because I like to just be away and concentrate on work and come back and concentrate on my family and my children. A lot of people don't like that. They can't stand being away. It all depends on your personality. The airlines are very structured. You have to stick to exactly what they say. And there is no argument. There's no creativity in a way. There's no option to try anything else. Whereas we have to think on our feet a lot more in the VIP sector. Everything changes all the time. You have demanding passengers who want to change their ideas. You've got to deal with the planning. You've got to deal with different airports and different weather conditions all the time, which we do generally in flying, but it can be such short notice stuff. So, but I like that. I like the uncertainty. I embrace the uncertainty. It makes me feel nervous, makes me have to step outside of my comfort zone. But that's how I feel as though I'm living, is to be stepping outside of my comfort zone. So yeah, there's so many different things, and I'll try and put a little chart together for afterwards to compare the two together.
Amazing, amazing. You got now something like 4 questions, and we've got like something like 6 minutes. Do you want to choose which questions you want to answer, or shall we go for all of them?
What have we got? So just go for the next question. That's something, because I have written them down here. So
okay, next question. What avenues are there for someone to become a pilot? Is there a sponsored route?
Yeah, I can answer that fairly quickly. There are various different ways. One of the problems, of course, which I think comes in part of the later question, is that money is a big issue when it comes to flying. But again, like I did, once I decided that that's what I wanted to do, there was no question I was going to succeed. So I would have found any way to do it. I borrowed an awful lot of money. I did have a little money just to start together. Well, I've been left some money by my grandparents. And then I borrowed some money, and I just absolutely made it happen. The way I got into it was just to pick up a magazine. I had no idea how to start. I picked up a magazine from a shop, and at the back it was advertisements for flying schools, for sponsorships. I just inhaled as much material as possible. Now it's all on the internet. In those days, it was on magazines. That's the way I got in, and I ended up finding somebody who gave me a structured plan. He was a consultant. I got on a train early one morning for 3 hours, went up to meet him. He gave me a structured plan. There's people that will do that for you. The sponsorship is an option, but it's very difficult to do, very, very difficult to get into. I wanted to get going as quickly as possible, and it could have taken me 2-3 years to get sponsored. The military is another one, of course. These days, it's certainly in the UK, it's harder to become a pilot. But I think just to get into the military and be around that is an option. The other way a lot of people do it is they try and get a job at an airport. So they'll go there and they'll clean the floor, they'll wash the airplanes, they'll fuel the airplanes, they'll clean the offices, just to be around that environment. And they talk to whoever and just keep asking questions, keep being hungry, and I keep that passion going. And that's, yeah, so those are, it's a hard one. Again, success comes from just determination. You just got to find all those different angles.
True, very true. Oh, let me go to question number 4. How many places have you been to so far? That's a nice one.
Well, not enough, but I've been all around the world. I was in America. I've been to America time and time again. South America. I've been to Asia, Japan, China, Bangkok, Hong Kong, Indonesia down there. I had a 2-month tour to Indonesia when I was flying for an airline in our off season. We were taking people from Indonesia up to Saudi Arabia for the Muslim pilgrimage to Mecca, which was a fascinating, absolutely fascinating experience. I've been all the way around Europe. I've been down to Sydney and New Zealand, Australia and New Zealand. I've been everywhere, really. And I would say the majority of that has been through my VIP flying, because these people want to go all around the world. And that's the diversity that you get. And in big airlines now, you generally only have a certain amount of routes, but the choice of places that I go to now is extraordinary in the VIP sector. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, still got a lot of places to go.
That can be an extended question, but I'm not going to go there. Okay. What can be personal and professional challenges in becoming a pilot?
Yeah, there's so many, of course. The professional side is the first thing is money, of course. You've got to find a way to overcome that. You've got to be fit and healthy. People think, well, if I wear glasses, I'm not going to be able to fly. Well, that's not true. My best friend, I feel very sorry for him, who where I found this brochure in the first place. He has a problem with his eyes, and so we both were trying to go down that route together, and he didn't succeed. And he'd been incredibly supportive of me for the last 25 years. He couldn't do it, but that's another thing. The professional side is just trying to find a job, and you spend an awful lot of money and an awful lot of time with no guarantee of a job. That's what you have. That's part of the whole drive through your passion. You have to decide that whatever obstacle again is thrown in front of you when it comes to finding a job, you're going to have to overcome it. The economic cycle can change. As we all know, that's the first thing that goes is flights. COVID was the first thing. The flights were the first thing. Shut everything. So many people lost their jobs. We have now this problem in Ukraine and Russia. I used to fly for some of the Russian guys there. All my friends have lost their jobs. So it's a very uncertain time. But that's the same, I think, with every job. You never know. Political things affect it. You've got cultures, professional side. We fly with different people from all around the world, and cultural sides can be a real challenge. Getting to understand people's different ways of operating, it's fascinating. If you think you've upset somebody's upset you. It might be for a completely different reason that they're understanding because of their background. Corporate pressure, for me, there is so much money involved in flying. So we are all being pushed to fly more and more and more for less and less rest, and for less and less money. Of course, we earn good money, but it wasn't the same as it was in the old days. So there is a lot of pressure there. And on the personal level, well, I think the pressure that we feel from the corporate side, from the money side, you get exhausted. You could be flying through the night and find it very difficult to recover. So that's when you have to bring your whole physical side in and concentrate on how to keep yourself healthy. There are intense periods when it's really hard work, and then there are intense periods when nothing happens. So you've got to get used to that change, dramatic change from the boredom to the excitement. And some people struggle with that. They can't cope with the unpredictability and the uncertainty of it. Physical safety, of course, but for me, it's the same as stepping across a road or you driving a car. It's the same principle. You've got to take responsibility for yourself. When I'm in that airplane, I'm not really thinking about all those people behind me. I'm thinking about myself and being able to get home and being a good father to my children. So that's the same thing. It's the same thing as I'm sure everybody when they get in a car. It's no different. People think that you're so responsible as a pilot, but it's no different from every single individual in this world. Emotionally, personal level, emotional safety, I talk about a lot. You're, as I talked about before, you sit next to these people that you may not like. You are constantly under pressure from training captains, people senior to you, reports. If something goes wrong, it all goes through to an automatic system through the airplane and through the internet. And you'll get an email or a phone call when you get on that ground. Why did you do this? And why did you do that? And you've got to be seriously resilient and just say, I got this wrong, and I'm going to try and put it right the next time. Some people will just not believe you because of their own insecurities, and they want to try and bring you down anyway. But that, again, that's a reflection of life generally. So, I think egos, I would say, on a personal level, dealing with other people's egos and dealing with our own egos. But that's a huge subject.
Yes, I'm a bit worried. We got like a minute left, a minute and a half. Okay. After you studied and
I'm very happy to continue this on at the next time on session or whatever you think, Tulsi. I'm very happy to come back, and if we've got more questions, we can do another session for sure.
Oh, that sounds great. Okay, so guys, we're going to end off for now, me and Ben, and we can always come back for another session. Okay, so Ben, really appreciate your time. You used up almost all of that time to help us here. So really appreciate you for being here today. Guys, that's Ben. Thanks, Ben. And
it's a real pleasure. It's a real pleasure. And as I say, it's a great privilege to be able to be here. Thank you, Tulsi. And I'll definitely see you guys again. Take care.
Bye, guys. Bye. Hi, guys. We just couldn't leave you hanging there on that last question number 6. And Ben was very generous and is very generous with his time. So he is going to really get into that question. I mean, hey, I felt like a Titanic there in the last session. We just had to hit the iceberg and say bye. But here we are again. Okay, let me go to the last question, which is, let me bring it up here. After you studied and passed your pilot exam, what was that feeling like now to be trusting yourself without any guide? What a good question.
Oh, it's such a good question. And I think that you can apply that to everything that we do in life. I remember that feeling, what happened after I got my training, after I got my license, I got a job at the parachute center, as I think I talked about before. So I did some training with the instructor there. And I knew that was, once he signed me off, that was it. I was going to be taking my first passengers up. And I drove up, took me an hour that first day. And my first schedule, I turned up and I just had 2 things on my shoulder. I had a demon on my shoulder telling me that I was an imposter and that I was going to get found out and it was all going to go terribly wrong. And on the other side, I had the angel telling me, listen, Ben, you've proved yourself. So many people have helped you get to this point in your life at 25 years old, 26 I was by that stage. So believe in them, respect those people that have helped you get on through life, and don't listen to that nasty demon on your shoulder that way. So it was incredibly exciting, incredibly nerve-wracking at the same moment. I turned up to the airfield and I saw the parachuters all getting ready, and I just had to take a big deep breath because they did not want to see me doubt myself. They didn't want to get into an airplane that with somebody who was like, oh shit, I'm not sure what I'm doing, because just it's not going to happen. And that's a real motivation for me. It's always a reflection of everything I do in my life. What am I responsible for now? When I drive down to the supermarket, I think people need to make sure that I'm in the right frame of mind. I'm going to smile at them. I'm going to make them feel good about themselves and give them confidence. And I always remember that first time. And actually, it was quite interesting because we tucked it out onto the runway and big breath, power, started going down the runway, took off, and everything was fine until about 6 or 7 minutes later. And then the engine started to run rough. This was my first flight, flying passengers in the back. And that demon was on my shoulder saying, yeah, told you, Ben, yeah, you're going to screw this up, you're going to fail. And I looked at the guys there, and the instructor next to me looked at him, and he looked at me with a look on his face like that. And I said to myself, don't give him an indication that you're really nervous and you're not sure about yourself either. Just be positive, take a deep breath. And I just said to him, go. And he and the guys jumped out of the airplane, and I was left in that airplane on my own to bring it down. And I actually had that angel on my shoulder. I just had that rush of positive feeling of adrenaline. I thought, this is my opportunity to prove myself again, like I did when I was in that spin before I'd even passed my private license. And I came down and I landed the airplane, and it was a huge confidence booster. And I did have a few more incidents like that. And when I fly now, 25 years down the road, I'm 50 years old. I'm a captain of the most sophisticated airplane in the passenger world. We fly the fastest in the sky, way faster than all the airlines. We fly higher than all the airlines. We get the quickest, and it's a huge privilege. But I still have that feeling. I still have that feeling of doubt sometimes in my mind. I still have that devil on my shoulder telling me I'm going to get caught out, I'm an imposter. And I still have this angel saying, come on, believe in yourself, believe what everybody else thinks about you. It's a constant battle. And for me, it's a fascinating thing. That's why I'm so interested in the holistic thing of repeat them, the mental approach to life, the physical approach to life, the emotional approach to life, and the spiritual approach to life. And turbulence happens in life, and you cannot have adventure without the excitement and the fear at the same time. You do not go through life feeling excited without understanding what fear is about. So that's an extended way of answering that question, I think.
Oh no, man, Ben, that's so good. Thank you, like, for extending yourself to this a second session and having everyone's questions answered. I'm really grateful and chuffed about that because, guys, I know you wanted to have this piloting session here, and here we got Ben. So, is there
Let's see.
any?
Shall I just finish off with a little summary? So there are a few things that as pilots we are trained to the highest level of all professions. So they say it's constant training all the time, but we are constantly training ourselves through life. So there is never a moment when we're not training for the next stage in our life, and to recognize when things are good and congratulate ourselves and feel good about it when we do things well. When things go wrong, inevitably we have to reflect on them positively and think what we're going to learn, as I was talking about before. And so just looking up here, there's one thing that I always refer to. It's a common aviation mnemonic, and it's called DORDAR, DORDAR. And the first part of that is to diagnose. And we talk about keeping your mind open so you can diagnose what's going on around you. Say we have an engine failure or an engine fire when you take off. It's the most critical stage. You've got to diagnose that proper. Right, it's an engine failure. Which side is it? It's the left, because you don't want to be thinking, well, oh, it's the right one, let's shut that one down, and then you've got no engines. So you've got to diagnose the problem. Take a deep breath and then brainstorm effectively. The next one in the DORDAR thing is options. What are the risks of shutting the wrong engine down? What are the risks of going to this airport compared to that airport? And it's the same in life. Generally, what's the risk of choosing this path to become a doctor or this path to become a road sweeper? What about the risk assessment of that? That's all part of it. And then the DORD is make a decision. You have to make a decision. So you've had all these tools, you've thought about it, you've come up with the options, thought about the risk. You have to make a decision. And so many people get paralyzed and they can't make decisions in life. Imagine yourself in an airplane. When the engines go, what are you going to do? Sit there and ask for a cuddle from mummy? This is what I say. Is that, well, that's not an option. You've got to make a decision to do something. And then you've got to review it. The most important thing in life is to listen to everybody and everything around you, and to listen to yourself. In other words, listen to everything that's going on, not just make that one decision and keep going there. So the last part of that, DORDAR, is to review. It's the most important thing. So I'll put that up. I'll do a little sheet for that, and that's quite a good reference thing as well. So yeah, wow. That's a metaphor. DORDAR.
Ben, when you talk about all these decisions and when you started your first job after you got your piloting license, and now you're on your own, it makes me, it does make me think about the fact that in life, we see this great salary, but there's a price that you pay for this great salary, because like you said, you have to demonstrate the confidence, and you have to put your doubts and your anxiety at bay so no one can see that under the radar, because they trust you. And that's and you say this is a constant battle, because life can change in a second, and you are handling this this plane with people that are trusting you, because they can't be pilots in a second. It's for every we look at the great things, this amazing thing from the far, but we don't see the price that people pay for to be there. And I mean, a person can study to be the pilot, but to actually get the chance to work, and then to take that chance and to take another chance at it, and to keep taking chances, because your fear can get the better of you and say, I'm not going to do this, I'm alone on this plane. It's really impressive, like it's getting over the fear on a very high scale. Yeah,
it is really. But I think this is the thing that people put pilots on a pinnacle of thinking they're really special people. And I honestly do not think I'm a special person. The people I fly with are not special people at all. We're just normal people. We're normal people who've made a decision to go for our passions, to follow our dreams. That comes back full circle to what I was talking about at the beginning. I honestly do not think that I've achieved anything that other people are not capable of. I understand that when there is some physical impairment, you can't fly an airplane, but there are people who do have those physical impairments who fly privately. They adapt an airplane. They may not be able to do it commercially, professionally like me, but there is a way. You just have to be absolutely determined. You have to set a goal. You have to set it. I always talk about in flying terms. You set a destination. You know you're going to go from. I'm in London. I'm going to come down to South Africa. I've set that goal. I'm going to absolutely make sure it happens. And then you commit to making it happen. You find every resource in your armory. You find as many people as you possibly can to help you in making that journey. And then you've got to persist. You have to persist when there are people telling you you can't do it, when you get up in the sky and you've got a thunderstorm, a mountain, and unbelievable turbulence in the way. I'm not going to come back to London. I might have to go that way or that way or that way or that way. I have to find a way to keep coming down to South Africa. And so persistence and resilience. When an engine fails or you have a massive decompression at 40,000 feet, there's no way, you can't breathe, you've got a mask on, you come down, you put that airplane down on the runway somewhere, and you think, I'm going to get that airplane fixed and I'm going to keep coming down to South Africa. Nobody's going to stop me. I think that's the important thing. You set that destination and you believe it's from your heart. Nobody can stop you. Nobody can stop you. And flying is such a good metaphor for everything. And that's what I do in my life. My heart is my biggest challenge. I'll tell you what, my biggest challenge in life is being a parent. No question about it. It's the hardest job that you can possibly do. But I try and use those metaphors from flying to try and help teach me to be a parent. I don't know how to be a parent. I didn't know how to fly airplanes, but you got to go one stage at a time, haven't you? You've got to take one stage at a time, and the knockbacks are just part of the learning process. So never doubt that you can make progress. You can make progress. We can all make progress. We just have to keep going towards that destination. Mm-hmm.
And God, there's so much there that's double, triple meaning in just one sentence.
Yeah.
Because it's just like you say, that you have to pass that that weather condition to get to your destination. It's the same with life.
Yes.
In every sense, being a parent, like you're just saying, everything, the desire, the wish you have at the end, you have to keep it alive and keep at it. It's yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Ben, before we close off?
I will do, just to give a little bit more hope to people who are not sure about it, is I failed my first flight license, so my PPL, my private pilot's license, having made some great progress, and my instructors told me I was doing really well. And I went to the flight exam. I had this examiner sitting next to me. I looked at him as though some special god, because I hadn't got his experience. He got more experience. I put him on a pedestal. I put him on a pedestal higher than me, and the demons came in. So I had 3/4 of the way through my flight went really well, and then that last quarter of that session, which seems to is part of my issue through life. I do so well in 3/4 of what I'm doing, and then I suddenly get that doubt coming, and I couldn't land the airplane properly. It was fine. I just came in too low, and I just wanted to be on the ground cuddling my mummy, and her telling me I was all okay. I just didn't want to be there, and I convinced myself. I talked myself out of it, and I talk about this to the boys that I help coaching cricket when they go out with that bat in their hand. And they get on the square and they see some guy who's twice the height of them coming in and bowling it incredibly fast. And they're saying, I can't do this, I can't do this. And they come out and they're out. I'm like, well, you talked yourself out of it. That guy's no different from you. He or she feels happiness, sadness, and affection, warmth, and anger, and all that sort of stuff. It's just the same as you. And that examiner in the aeroplane. We got on the ground, and I thought, what's the point of being a pilot? Just complete waste. Let's go home. And he said to me, I know you can do it. It's up to you. He said that to me. I know you can pass this test, and it's up to you. What you're going to do is going to see your instructor this afternoon for another trip. And then tomorrow morning, I'm going to be here at 9 o'clock, and you are going to pass that test. I'm like, okay. So I stuck my shoulders back and I stuck my chin up, and I didn't feel sorry for myself and think, oh yeah, all that. And I went back the next day, and I came up, and he got on the ground and he gave me the biggest handshake and just said, it's down to you. It's all up to you. And that's so true. And I just thought, I've had some wonderful people like that and I would say that to any of you guys. Listen, it's down to you. Don't let yourself, your demons, convince you that you can't do it, because you can.
They are good people. They are definitely good people, you know. I mean, it reminds me of the day I got my driving license, but I did fail a couple of times. So I got it.
Yeah. Yeah, but it teaches you, doesn't it? Failure teaches you. Failure teaches you about yourself. That's the most important thing. Yeah, very important.
A question from me. Now you've been so many places around the world. It's a hard one. What's the favorite place for you? Do you have a favorite?
You're leading me down to a line, and actually South Africa is one of the most magical experiences I've had, honestly.
Wow.
I'm so fortunate. And again, it depends with the people. So much of life depends on the people that you're with, and the emotional place that you, and the spiritual place you are within yourself. And South Africa has always been an absolute fascination for me. And it's a long way from the UK, of course. So that extra distance makes it even more of a dream. And we hired a car when we were down there. We drove all the way round and just had a wonderful time. And the food there and the welcome there was just magical. And I did get to go to one of the game parks as well. I'm extremely fortunate to do that. And it was magical. But, you know, there are so many places I've been. There's so many stories I can tell of the wonderful people that I've met. Indonesia was incredible. Just going and visiting the orphanages there and the slums there was such an eye-opener. The joy on people's faces. I went to India recently. I was in Delhi, and I went to see one of the charities there that looks after the railway children on the railways there, and they look after the slums that sit on the side of the railway. And it was unbelievably heartwarming to see those children rush up with beautiful smile on their face, with no expectation whatsoever, and just want to feel engaged. You know, it's that want to feel spiritually connected, and that feeling of unbelievable satisfaction was just amazing. And the humility that makes me feel incredibly humbled for what I do, to fly these richest people, but I still have the opportunity to connect with those other people. And that can be anywhere in the world. It can be anywhere in the world, can't it? Anywhere, any circumstance, wherever you are, the connection to people is the most important thing, because we cannot survive without each other. That's the one thing. Teamwork again, teamwork. We only survive in this life through teamwork. So yes, that's my answer for that lovely question, South Africa.
Amazing. Okay, guys, we should let Ben go, because, you know, he's really extended himself for us here. You know, Ben, do you want to close off?
But I'm very happy to come back, guys. Honestly, Tulsi, I'm very happy to come back any other times. I look forward to that.
Awesome. For now, guys, we say bye to Ben. Ben, I'm going to let you close off. See you guys.
It's a pleasure, guys. Just
Bye.
believe in yourselves. So there we go. That was Tulsi and her wonderful community down in South Africa. So what about you? Are you following your dreams, conquering your self-doubt so that you can lead a life full of joy and success? Well, let me know in that box below. And if you've enjoyed the video, be sure to come back for some more as I share my thoughts, experiences and adventures traveling around the world. In the meantime, keep it in the greens, continue to discover your self-belief and live the life of your dreams.
Everybody.